Welcome to my latest YouTube video. My name is Rosenberg. I'm the author of the Human Magnet Syndrome and the creator of the Codependency Cure treatment program. Today I'm going to talk about the exception to my Human Magnet Syndrome relationship explanation. But for those who haven't read the book, and of course, product placement, the book essentially explains that narcissists and codependents, or what I call people with self-love deficit disorder, are naturally attracted to each other like a dancing couple. The dancing couple needs the opposite personality type in order to fit in with theirs, in order to perform the dance magnificently so they can feel good about it. The leader needs a follower, and a follower needs a leader. Essentially, it is the opposite personality traits that unconsciously draw the codependent and the narcissist together, because the codependent, because of their sad and unfortunate attachment trauma or the abuse, neglect, or deprivation in their childhood at the hands of a narcissistic parent and often another codependent parent, they learn that to be loved, they have to find a way to either be invisible, or the trophy child, the child who can be the extension of self for their narcissistic parent, the child who can make the parent feel good about themselves. So in an effort to find some form of love, conditional love, they became that extension, that part of their narcissistic parent to get the morsels of love or the crumbs. Conversely, the child of the same family, a sibling, would not, or was not allowed to adapt to the narcissist's needs and was labeled the bad child, the problem child, the bad seed. And there are so many explanations for that. But that child, because of their failure to adapt, became the outsider and received no conditional love, nothing. And that childhood severe deprivation became the foundation of what would later become the personality disorder. As I explained in my Human Magnet Syndrome book, that every child comes out of their childhood into adulthood with what is called a relationship template, an unconscious blueprint set of instructions of what feels safe, what is familiar, and who or what type of person you will ultimately feel attracted to. And the very same for the pathological narcissist. So that when we fast forward into adulthood and two people meet and there is chemistry, that means their personalities are matching up. The pathological narcissist needs to be seen, needs to talk, needs to take control. The codependent or the SLD needs to accommodate, to mold themselves, to sacrifice, to defer their needs in order to feel love. And that is the basis of the Human Magnet Syndrome. And that is probably the fastest I've ever explained it. But in the book, there's only a few paragraphs that explain the exceptions to the Human Magnet Syndrome rule. Let's first start with the premise. Chemistry is the profoundly strong unconscious representation of two oppositely matched relationship templates. If you meet someone and experience intense chemistry, and incidentally, everyone has the potential to feel chemistry, but the chemistry experienced with SLDs, codependents, and pathological narcissists is off the charts. So if you're an SLD and you experience chemistry, there is, I believe, a 95% probability that that person is going to be a pathological narcissist. And the same goes with the narcissist, except it's opposite. Within that chemistry reaction is the matching of relationship templates. The SLD does not go to her or his first couple dates and go, oh my God, that really sucks. He does all the talking, or she. I can't believe everything I say, he says, and he does better. Instead, they see someone that is unconsciously reminiscent of the only people that they loved in the past, whom they had to mold themselves, shape themselves, fragment themselves in a way that could be the recipient of that person's love. And therefore, when two people meet, narcissist, SLD meet, there's this feeling of familiarity and safety And for the SLD, the codependent, that safety is paradoxical. So again, more information on the human magnet syndrome. But what about the exceptions? There's a bunch of them. And this video will not cover all of them, but I will do my best to cover the most important ones. The first example is arranged marriages. There are many people who follow religion, cultures, many ethnic groups that believe that that is the way that people should meet and ultimately get married. And I will reserve my judgment on that. But in those cases, it's not about chemistry. It's not about the human magnet syndrome matching up of opposite personalities. And in these cases, there is no guarantee that there will be a human magnet syndrome matchup, a guarantee that relationship templates will match up, a guarantee that they'll have anything in common. So some people get lucky and some don't. Another example is unplanned pregnancies, young pregnancies, or pregnancies that are born with feelings or reactive feelings of shame and fear of isolation. Imagine 18 or 19 years old and they have sex and get pregnant. And they are afraid because of the religious beliefs that have been pushed upon them or that they actually uphold, or they're afraid of judgment from their parents, judgment from relatives, or even inculcated shame, which could come from one's parents' gaslighting or even from religion. They feel compelled to get married so that they can avoid all of what I just explained. The third example is a person with severe abandonment issues. These can be both SLDs and narcissists, but for the most part, my experience is they're SLDs or codependents. They grew up with such extreme loneliness and abandonment and subsequent feelings of lack of worth, believing that perhaps no one would ever fall in love with them and that they could easily fall victim to living a life alone. But what they don't know that this is actually irrational. But regardless, it's a fear that is deeply embedded in their psyche that comes from some pretty serious attachment trauma. If an SLD has that type of severe abandonment issues and they meet someone, say in college, who is this nice guy, again, guy, woman, it doesn't really matter, but a nice guy who's a caretaker, who's a sweetheart, is there in thick and thin, who is dependable and loving, unconditionally loving. There's not going to be chemistry, but the desire to be in a relationship with someone who can almost be guaranteed to take care of them supersedes the human magnet syndrome, unconscious matching up of relationship templates or chemistry. In those situations, the marriages usually crumble. They have little to no intimacy or sex. They have little to no emotional chemistry where they just are excited and happy to be with each other. And often it results in very disconnected partners that are prone to having affairs. Another version of that is with a narcissist and an alpha narcissist. It's a term that also is explained in my Human Magnet Syndrome book, but essentially it means that the alpha narcissist has the most severe representation of pathological narcissism. And the partner of that narcissist, another narcissist, is less severe in their presentation of their pathological narcissism. So one actually controls a relationship. It's a mini version of the human magnet syndrome of opposites, but it's really two narcissists. The narcissist who is in the partnership with the alpha similarly fears a lifetime of being alone, to be isolated, abandoned, to be without family or children, without financial stability. And they meet the other narcissist, and because of that person's success or perceived stability, it becomes a wise move for them to choose that individual. And what you have with the two narcissists, the alpha and the partner of the alpha configuration, is the partner narcissist dissociates, detaches, and learns to submerge their narcissism to avoid clashes and represents it either passive aggressively or with other people. because their need for stability, their fear of abandonment is so severe, they can manage the little narcissistic injuries silently. It doesn't mean that their narcissism goes away. It just means it's not expressed and it's redirected in other ways. So what you have are two narcissists, and should they have children, it is typical that when I am doing a psychotherapy session and gathering important family background, initially I'm confused because both parents seem narcissistic. And if I look into it and the case is similar to this example, what I find out is the alpha and the partner of the alpha narcissist configuration. So what does this all mean? Essentially, the importance of this explanation is to validate someone's life. If you are SLD and you are in recovery, whether it's my self-love recovery treatment program or another form of psychotherapy that actually works, you're going to hit a wall when you try to make sense of your childhood, especially if you're using the human magnet syndrome as an explanation for why it all happened and how that pattern was passed to you and potentially the next generation. It also is useful to know, should you, the victim or the former child of two parents like this, should try to understand, get help, get therapy for the problems that resulted from having two parents. And the probability is, if you're seeking help, you're an SLD, because if you became a pathological narcissist, you wouldn't be seeking help. And when you are in therapy and you're trying to figure out how it works, the more you could understand about your parents, their unique psychopathology. Now, I'm talking about SLDs. If someone does not have SLDD or pathological narcissism, there's a high probability that their parents don't deserve a diagnosis. But if someone is going to make sense of who they are and why they fall victim to their own impulse over and over again, to fall for the person that begins as a soulmate and eventually devolves into the cellmate, a saying that my dad loved to say, you have to find out what happened. And the most important element of that discovery is that time in one's life from 0 to 12. I call that the attachment phase, even though the purists refer to attachment phase as much younger. But to understand why you have inherited those psychological tendencies to fall victim to the narcissist and wanting to do something about it, you have to understand your parents. You have to understand who they were and why they did what they did. It's through this exploration you can understand how your SLDD was passed on to you. And if you have those type of parents whose relationship doesn't make sense, then this video should help you. If you're interested in more of my work, whether it is through my book or through my downloadable video or audio educational resources, don't hesitate to contact us at help@selfloverecovery.com or just go to our website at selfloverecovery.com. Take care and be well.